On the 6th of June 1944, the British, American and Canadian armies landed successfully on the beaches of Normandy. After the capture of what was left of Caen, and scarcely 7 weeks after the Allied landings had taken place, the necessary conditions for the breakout from the Allied bridgehead had been created. On the 26th of July, the first break was made by the US Army through the German lines at St. Lo. On the following day, General Montgomery ordered General Dempsey, commander of the British Second Army, to launch, in support of the American advance, a major offensive to the south and southeast of Caumont, codenamed Operation Bluecoat. Necessary to the success of the operation was the capture of Montpensant, regarded as the most important tactical feature in Normandy. From a height of 365 meters, and with a clear view of the surrounding countryside, the Germans were able to bring to bear instant and accurate artillery and mortar fire on any movement for miles around. Not surprisingly, the Germans attached considerable importance to the defense of this feature. The 43rd Wessex Infantry Division, made up of county regiments drawn from the southwest of England and organized into 129, 130 and 214 brigades, was made responsible for the capture of Montpensant. In support were the guns of the divisional artillery and the 8th Armoured Brigade, with the tanks of the 13th 18th Hussars, the 4th 7th Dragoon Guards and the Sherwood Rangers. Even in retreat, the quality of the German soldier and the effectiveness of his weapons was to ensure that the battle for Montpensant would be a hard one.
When we captured a position, and if we captured the men, frequently the company or whatever it was that we had been commanded by a warrant officer, German warrant officer. We asked them quite often why. Their usual answer was, the officers have gone back to reconnoiter the next position, and we are quite capable of commanding a company. I thought they were.
The Germans understood suppressive firepower far more than we did. We had been trained on the Bren light machine gun. It had a cyclic rate of fire of about 450 rounds per minute, and it was magazine fed. The MG42 was belt fed, and it had a rate of fire of 1,200 rounds a minute. Many of the German sections had 2 of these light machine guns.
Where the Bren would gain was it was an accurate weapon. I mean, you could really knock somebody's eye out with it at 100 yards without any difficulty. Whereas the Germans, it was more like a hose pipe. But what you have to bear in mind, that when the Germans used a machine gun, it was guns rather than gun. I mean, there might be half a dozen of them, and invariably they supported one another, and the general crossfire of them was virtually impossible to get through.
The Germans also had something we didn't have, and that was the Nebelwerfer. That was a multi-barreled weapon. When it fired, it made a most ghastly noise, like a cow reaching.
Terrible, terrible, terrible. Especially when they used the moaning minis. They had a new thing which is called the moaning minis. And I think it was either a 6-barreled one or a 10-barreled one, if I can remember right. And those things just went screaming up into the... They didn't do... If you could get down, you were safe, you know what I mean, like. And they were full, I believe, of nails, glass, everything. And there's such a terrifying noise, like, that it frightened you.
It was said that rocket-propelled moaning minis could fire and be out of action and on the move before the rounds landed, which made it very difficult to engage them.
You have to bear in mind that the Germans were basically retreating. in Normandy, slowly but retreating. And they've got all the positions and all the distances taped to the metre, so that when you got to a crossroads, it suddenly rained mortar shells. And without you didn't get away from those crossroads, there was no way of surviving at all, because they would come over in clouds, absolute cloud.
I think everybody who was in a Sherman tank realized its shortcomings. They had a great affinity to it, really, because it's such an incredibly reliable tank. It hardly ever broke down.
Now, the shortcomings of the Sherman were quite serious ones. First of all, the armor plating on a Sherman, compared with that of a Tiger tank, there's practically no comparison. The Sherman, I can't tell you the exact figures, but it's considerably less armored than is the frontal armor of a Tiger. And the result was that the 88mm gun mounted on the Tiger tank could go through a Sherman like a knife through butter. Whereas our 75mm would hit a Tiger and you'd see the tracer bounce straight up in the air, and they just bounced off the top.
You were aware of the fact that you were very thin-skinned, and as far as 88 was concerned, or even the German 75, long barrel 75, would penetrate you quite easily, even at the front. So we did have spaced armor added to most of our tanks on the front and on the sides, but this was probably a psychological armor more than anything else. But it was a good gun, the 75, very, very good high HE performance. The AP performance was a bit pathetic, unless you were fairly close to. But the machine guns were brilliant. So as far as an infantry support tank was concerned, it was very good indeed.
And the other disconcerting thing about a Sherman is its propensity to burst into flames. And this they did with monotonous regularity. Every time a Sherman was hit, 9 times out of 10, it would catch fire in a most horrific fashion.
Terrible, frightening, absolutely frightening. I was hit later on up in Germany, knocked out by what I believe was a German 88, which went into the side of the tank. He fired 3 shells into the side of the tank, and we all managed to get out. I was an operator at the time, and I was troop leader's operator, and he got out, and the gunner got out, and I was last to get out, and by then it was well and truly on fire.